Have you ever been completely alone, perhaps late at night, in a house that has finally gone quiet, and felt with a sudden prickly certainty that you weren't actually alone? There's no sound, no floorboard creaks, but the air behind your neck feels heavy, as if someone is standing just out of sight, their attention resting squarely on you. It's an embarrassing sensation to admit to. We usually shake it off with a nervous laugh or a quick glance over our shoulder, telling ourselves it's just stress or an overactive imagination. Yet that feeling, that persistent, unshakable sense of being watched, is one of the most universal human experiences we have. It's why we close the curtains at night, even when there's no one outside, and why we feel a strange relief when we finally turn off the light. This creates a quiet, persistent friction in our lives. We are told by every modern scientific textbook that the universe is a blind, mechanical place. It is indifferent. It doesn't have eyes, and it certainly doesn't have an opinion about us. We are taught that reality is a vast, unconscious machine, and we are just small, accidental sparks of awareness flickering inside it for a brief moment. And yet, our inner lives refuse to believe the script. There is a tension between what we are told, that we are unobserved accidents, and what we feel, that we are somehow being seen. This isn't about ghosts or paranoia, and I'm not here to sell you on a supernatural theory. I'm just as uncertain as you are, but I am curious. I want to look at why this feeling of presence refuses to go away, and whether our modern story of a blind universe might be missing something fundamental. We're going to look into the mechanics of your brain, the strange behavior of subatomic particles, and the very structure of the cosmos itself. Not to find a definitive answer, but to see if we can transform that unsettling prickle on the back of your neck into something else entirely. If you're willing to sit with the mystery for a while, let's explore this together. Long before we had philosophy or physics, we had the instinct to survive. If you look at the human brain, it becomes clear very quickly that we aren't just built to see, we are built to be seen. We possess a highly specialized network of neurons, part of our gaze detection system, that is tuned with incredible precision to the direction of someone else's eyes. From the time we are infants, we are scanning for attention. In the wild, failing to notice a pair of eyes tracking you from the brush wasn't just a social lapse, it was a death sentence. Evolution favored the paranoid. It was far better for our ancestors to see a predator that wasn't there than to miss one that was. This has left us with what psychologists call a hyperactive agency detection device. It's a fancy way of saying that our brains are biased toward finding who rather than what. We see faces in the clouds, we hear voices in the wind, and we feel a presence in an empty room because our biology is playing it safe. It projects intention onto the environment to ensure we are never caught off guard. When you feel watched while you're alone, science suggests your brain is simply running a diagnostic on a threat that doesn't exist. It's a glitch, a leftover survival mechanism from a more dangerous era. But there is a point where this explanation starts to feel a little thin. Even when we logically understand the biology of it, even when we know the room is empty and the doors are locked, the sensation doesn't necessarily dissolve. It's as if the glitch is touching something deeper than just a survival instinct. We don't just feel watched by potential predators, we feel a general sense of being accounted for. There is a subtle dissatisfaction that comes with labeling this feeling as mere error. It feels less like a biological mistake and more like a constant, quiet dialogue between us and the space we occupy. Psychology explains the mechanism, the how of the prickle on our skin, but it doesn't quite touch the why. It tells us how the brain generates the feeling of a watcher, but it leaves us standing in a universe that is still, supposedly, completely empty of one. It describes the internal hardware perfectly, yet it leaves the actual nature of the room we're standing in untouched. If the feeling is just an illusion, why does reality itself seem to react so strangely when we actually start to measure it? For centuries, we didn't need a psychological explanation for the feeling of being watched because we had a theological one. Whether it was an all-seeing deity, ancestral spirits, or the literal eyes of the stars, we lived with the assumption that the universe was looking back. We existed in a state of constant visibility. But as we moved into the modern age, we traded that divine gaze for a mechanical one. We were told that the universe is just dead matter moving in the dark, and that our feeling of being seen was just an old religious habit we hadn't quite kicked yet. But then the physicists started looking closer at the smallest building blocks of that dead matter, and things got very strange. In the world of quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon known as the observer effect. It's often demonstrated by the double-slit experiment, which shows that subatomic particles behave differently depending on whether they are being measured or not. When we aren't looking, or more accurately, when no information is being extracted from the system, particles exist as waves of possibility. They are everywhere and nowhere. But the moment an interaction occurs that measures the particle, that cloud of possibility collapses into a single, definite point. Now, scientists are very careful to point out that observation here doesn't necessarily require a human mind. It just requires an interaction that records information. But the implication is still destabilizing. It suggests that at the most fundamental level, the universe behaves one way when it is private, and another way when it is accounted for. It implies that interaction, the act of witnessing or being witnessed, is not just something that happens inside reality, but something that actually defines how reality functions. This creates a bridge back to that ancient feeling. If the very fabric of the world shifts its behavior based on whether its information is being shared, then the line between the watcher and the watched begins to blur. We start to wonder if the unsettling feeling of being seen isn't just a leftover religious impulse or a survival glitch, but a recognition of a physical truth. That nothing in this universe exists in total isolation. Everything is constantly measuring everything else. This takes the mystery out of our heads and puts it into the room. It suggests that we aren't just imagining a presence. We are experiencing a reality that is fundamentally interactive. We are moving from a particle-based world of lonely objects into a world of relationships. And in a world built on relationships, the idea of being unobserved might actually be the real illusion. The universe isn't a blind machine, it's a vast, interconnected web where the act of looking is what holds the whole thing together. If we zoom out from the strange behavior of particles and look at the entire architecture of the cosmos, the mystery only deepens. There is a concept in cosmology known as fine-tuning. It refers to the fact that the fundamental constants of our universe, things like the strength of gravity or the electromagnetic force, seem to be dialed in with impossible precision. If these values were different by even a fraction of a percent, stars wouldn't ignite, atoms wouldn't hold together, and life would be a mathematical impossibility. This leads us to the anthropic principle. In its simplest form, it suggests that the universe looks the way it does because if it didn't, we wouldn't be here to see it. It's a bit of a circular logic, a cosmic survival bias. We are here, so the universe must be capable of supporting us. But there's a stronger version of this idea that feels much more personal. It asks, is it possible that the emergence of an observer isn't just a lucky accident, but a structural necessity? Think about the implications of that for a moment. If a universe exists, but there is never anything within it capable of witnessing it, no eyes, no minds, no sensors, does it truly exist in any meaningful way? Without a witness, a universe is just a silent equation running in the dark. Some philosophers and scientists have begun to wonder if the universe wants to be seen, not in a conscious, human sense, but as a matter of cosmic completion. Perhaps reality requires a perspective to move from a state of pure math into a state of actual being. This shifts our perspective on that feeling of being watched. If observers are a necessary part of the cosmic design, then our presence here isn't an intrusion. We aren't just uninvited guests at a party that was going to happen anyway. We might be the ones the party was thrown for. This doesn't mean we are the center of the universe, but it suggests we are an essential part of its self-expression. The unease we feel when we think we're being watched might actually be a subtle, inverted form of awe. It's the feeling of being part of a system that is designed to be perceived. When we look at the stars, we feel small, but we also feel a strange, humming connection to them. That's because we aren't just looking at the universe, we are the universe looking at itself. The sense of a presence in the room might just be the quiet vibration of a reality that is finally, after billions of years, being accounted for. We are the witnesses the universe has been waiting for, and that responsibility carries a weight that feels very much like a gaze. For a long time, we've tried to explain consciousness as a late-blooming flower, a delicate, accidental byproduct of complex biology. We assumed that first there was dead matter, then there was life, and finally, there was the light of awareness. But this story has a massive hole in it. Science can map every neuron and every chemical signal in your brain, yet it still can't explain why any of that feels like something. This is the hard problem of consciousness. It's the gap between the gray matter of the brain and the vivid, private experience of being alive. Because of this gap, some of our most rigorous thinkers are beginning to turn the old story on its head. Theories like panpsychism suggest that awareness isn't something that was added to the universe at the last minute. Instead, they propose that consciousness might be a fundamental property of reality itself, just like mass or gravity or time. In this view, the universe isn't a collection of objects that occasionally think. It is a field of awareness that occasionally forms objects. If you entertain this for even a moment, the feeling of being watched changes completely. It stops being a who and starts being a what. If awareness is baked into the very fabric of space, then you aren't being watched by a person or a ghost or a god. You are simply existing within a medium that is inherently awake. You are like a fish, feeling the pressure of the water against its scales. The water isn't judging the fish, but it is constantly touching it, reacting to its movements, and holding it in place. This reframes our identity. If awareness is fundamental, then your own mind isn't a lonely island. It's more like a localized whirlpool in a much larger ocean of consciousness. When you feel a presence in a room, you might not be detecting a separate entity. You might be feeling the tension where your individual awareness meets the background awareness of the world around you. We often push these ideas away because they feel too close to the mystical or the unscientific. But these theories are being explored precisely because the materialist explanation that we are just meat machines in a silent void is failing to account for our actual experience. We don't have to believe in panpsychism to see the value in the shift it offers. It suggests that our sense of being seen isn't a sign of madness or a glitch in the hardware. It's a resonance. It's the quiet sound of a mind recognizing that it is at home in a universe that is just as alive as it is. The most difficult part of feeling watched isn't the observation itself, it's the weight we attach to it. In our modern world, being watched usually means being monitored. We think of surveillance cameras, data algorithms, or the judgmental gaze of social media. We've been conditioned to associate being seen with being evaluated, scrutinized, or caught. So when that quiet prickle of presence hits us while we're alone, it often carries a hint of fear or unease. We feel like a subject under a microscope, but there is another way to hold this feeling. Many ancient contemplative traditions describe a state of being witnessed that has nothing to do with judgment. They speak of a quality of attention that is warm, spacious, and utterly neutral. Think of the way the sun shines on a stone, or the way the forest sees a deer moving through the trees. There is no critique there. There is only a quiet, steady acknowledgement of existence. This is the difference between being watched and being held in awareness. When we strip away the modern anxiety of surveillance, the feeling of being observed can transform from a threat into an intimacy. If the universe is indeed structured around perspective and interaction, then that presence you feel is simply the reality of your connection to the whole. You are being seen because you are there. You are a part of the tapestry, and the tapestry is aware of its own threads. Try to notice how that shift feels in your body. If you imagine that the space around you is not a cold vacuum, but a field of quiet, gentle witnessing, the isolation begins to dissolve. The unsettling, something is watching, becomes a grounding, I am not alone. You can stop performing, you can stop hiding. You don't have to be anything other than what you are, because the gaze of the universe isn't looking for a mistake to correct. It is simply completing the circuit of existence. We've spent so much time trying to prove that the universe is blind so that we could feel free, but in doing so, we made ourselves orphans in a silent cosmos. By leaning into the possibility of being seen, we might find a different kind of freedom, the freedom of belonging. To be observed is to be validated. To be witnessed is to be real. In this light, the prickle on the back of your neck isn't a warning, it's an invitation to stop holding your breath and finally settle into the world. So the next time you're alone and that familiar quiet weight settles into the room, don't rush to turn on the lights or look away. Just sit with it for a moment. You might realize that you aren't feeling the eyes of a stranger, but the pulse of a reality that finally has someone to notice it. We were taught that the feeling of being watched was a flaw in our wiring, a leftover ghost of a superstitious past. But perhaps it was the most honest thing we ever felt. Maybe the something that is always watching isn't an external force at all, but the very fabric of existence recognizing itself through your eyes. We aren't standing alone in a silent, indifferent gallery. We are the art and the audience all at once. The universe isn't watching you to judge you, it's watching you because, without you, it would be invisible. I'm curious, do you find this idea comforting, or does it make the world feel even more strange? Tell me about a time you felt that presence and how you make sense of it now. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this exploration gave you a moment of stillness or made you see your own reflection a little differently, please consider subscribing to join us for the next journey. Thank you for spending your time and your attention here with me. It means more than you know.